What if I told you that in the battle for survival, during the absolute worst moments of human history, one group has consistently had a biological edge? A group that survives hardship better and lives longer. That group is women. We all know the popular image, the stoic, unflappable man as the pinnacle of mental strength. But science tells a radically different story. So, are women the mentally strongest in the world? We're not interested in opinions or stereotypes, we're here for the data. And the truth is a lot more complex, and way more fascinating, than a simple yes or no. Let's start with the ultimate test of strength, survival. Across the globe, and for as far back as we have records, women outlive men by an average of about 5 years. And this isn't some modern trend, it's a deeply ingrained biological reality. A landmark study analyzing centuries of data found that women consistently show greater resilience when crisis hits. Even in the same horrific conditions, like brutal famines or epidemics, women have a stronger survival rate. This suggests a kind of foundational endurance that goes beyond just physical power. But why? Part of the answer might start before we're even born. Some research suggests a mother's placenta behaves differently based on the baby's sex, potentially giving girls an immune system head start. This biological advantage continues throughout life. For instance, major health issues like cardiovascular disease tend to show up much earlier in men. But biology is only half the story, behavior is the other. Psychologically, women often take a more adaptive approach to stress. While men are often socialized to bottle up their emotions, women are more likely to build support networks, talk through their feelings, and adapt. That ability to connect and process is a cornerstone of long-term resilience. Think about a painful breakup. One study suggested that while women may feel the initial emotional hit more intensely, they also tend to recover more completely because they process it. Men, on the other hand, are often taught to just move on, sometimes without ever truly healing. This raw survival data paints a clear picture. When it comes to enduring and bouncing back from the brink, women have a documented scientific advantage. To really get to the bottom of this, we have to look at the hardware itself, the human brain. While men's brains are about 10% larger on average, size doesn't have any bearing on intelligence. The real story is in the wiring. Brain imaging studies have revealed a stunning difference in connectivity. Women tend to have much stronger connections between the brain's left and right hemispheres. You can think of it as a superhighway of information flowing between the analytical and intuitive sides of the brain. This enhanced crosstalk is believed to be what helps power strong intuitive thinking and the ability to juggle multiple tasks. Men's brains, in contrast, show stronger connections from the front to the back within each hemisphere. This setup seems to support focused perception and refined motor skills, making it well suited for projects that require intense, singular focus. These wiring differences also affect how we engage with the world. Women often have verbal centers on both sides of the brain, while in men, they're usually concentrated on the left. This bilateral setup in women often correlates with stronger verbal and writing skills. What's more, some studies show women have a larger hippocampus, the brain's memory center. While not universally settled, this could be why women often retain stronger and more vivid memories of emotional events, a trait that can contribute to both greater empathy and deeper resilience. For decades, expressing emotion was wrongly labeled a weakness. Science now proves it's the very foundation of mental strength. And when it comes to emotional intelligence, or EQ, the data is compelling. Meta-analyses consistently find that women score higher in overall emotional intelligence. They particularly excel at empathy, social skills, and recognizing nonverbal emotional cues, the very things that help build strong bonds. This doesn't mean men don't have emotional strengths. They often score higher in emotional self-regulation and stress tolerance, showing an ability to stay calm under pressure. But the way each gender gets there is different. Women are more likely to use strategies like mindfulness and talking it out to cope. Men have often been socialized to suppress or avoid their feelings. While that might look like stoicism in the short term, research links that suppression to higher rates of substance abuse and other issues down the road. This brings up a crucial point. Women report higher rates of anxiety and depression, but they are also far more likely to seek help, a critical sign of true resilience. In fact, this distress is often not a sign of lesser resilience, but a direct result of bearing a greater load of life stresses. When those external factors are accounted for, the gender gap in distress often shrinks. But what about pure mental toughness? That grit and resolve to push through a challenge? Surely that's where men have the edge, right? Not according to the data. Large-scale studies on mental toughness, defined as how we respond to pressure and stress, have found that overall scores for adult men and women are virtually identical. The difference is statistically insignificant. There's just no evidence that one gender is inherently tougher than the other. When you dig into the details, however, subtle differences appear. Men tend to score a bit higher on confidence in their own abilities, while women score higher on interpersonal confidence. And get this, one study noted that in some male-dominated industries, women in leadership roles had significantly higher mental toughness scores than their male counterparts, suggesting they had to clear a much higher bar just to get there. And while some studies show adolescent boys may have a slight edge, this gap typically vanishes in adulthood, pointing to it being a cultural or developmental phase rather than a biological fact. The pattern of different but equal strengths continues with cognitive abilities. As mentioned, women tend to outperform men in verbal fluency and memory tasks, while men show a slight advantage in visuospatial skills, like mentally rotating an object. They are simply different tools for different jobs, proving that the idea of a single, superior model of mental strength is just plain wrong. The science is clear: the brain isn't a monolith. The differences between genders aren't about better or worse, but about diverse and complementary strengths. If you're finding this deep dive into the real science of mental strength as fascinating as we are, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're committed to cutting through the noise and bringing you data-driven truths you can count on. So, back to the big question: are women the mentally strongest in the world? The scientific answer is that we're asking the wrong question. It's not a competition. The evidence doesn't point to one gender being superior, but to two different, and equally powerful, profiles of mental strength. Women demonstrate a profound strength rooted in resilience, emotional intelligence, and social connection. They're wired for multitasking, have a superior recall of emotional information, and possess a biological drive for survival that is nothing short of extraordinary. Their capacity for compassion and self-reflection aren't weaknesses, they are powerful tools for navigating a complex social world. Men, on the other hand, show strengths in focused attention, emotional regulation, and spatial reasoning. But the cultural pressure to suppress emotions can hide vulnerability behind a mask of toughness, leading to poorer long-term outcomes. The ultimate picture is one of complementarity. Instead of asking who is stronger, science invites us to ask how these different strengths benefit humanity as a whole. True mental strength isn't about being an unmovable rock, it's about the flexibility, awareness, and endurance to weather any storm. And by that measure, the quiet, consistent, and profound strength of women is one of the most powerful forces in the world.